Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the last meeting of the year. So if you'll rise for invocation and pledge of allegiance. Father God, I thank you for this wonderful community. I ask for your blessing for everyone within it. I pray for us as leaders to have good judgment and discernment and the ability to engage in meaningful discourse, respectful discourse, as we work on policy for our town. I thank you for our first responders and ask that you keep them out of harm's way as they do their work to keep our town safe. And finally, this season to many of us is a joyous time of year, but for some, it isn't. So I pray you have comfort and peace for those who are struggling. I ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of these days. All right. Next on the agenda is new employee introductions. Do we have any at this time, Eileen?
Actually, yes. She's not an employee of the city, but I wanted to introduce Jennifer Patterson is our new school superintendent, and she's visiting here.
Yes.
Just come see how we do things here. So I just wanted to introduce her, and she looks like she's halfway to the table.
Yeah, come on up and tell us about
come up
yourself.
and
Welcome to
introduce
Canby.
yourself a little bit.
We've already met, but there's some that haven't, so welcome.
Hi. Hello, and thank you so much for the invitation to come tonight. My name's Jennifer Patterson, and I don't know if you've heard, but I get to be the new superintendent of this great community. So I live across the river in Wilsonville. I have two children, McKenna and William. I'm also married to Jeremiah, who's an educator. And I kind of feel like Canby found me in some ways. And I'm just started here July 15th. And I have to say, there are, well, I like to say there's 91 reasons why I love Canby. We have a school called 91. So I won't recount all of those reasons for you today, but I will say that in a very short amount of time, it's really evident to me the incredible sense of community that lives here, among the felt community that lives in the community. Also just the shared sense of value for family, for our children and their welfare and well-being, the incredible ethos of service that's here, that's so evident. And I love the generational sense of story that is so abundant here, and people that have stories connected to our schools and each other and this place. And I think that's just a really remarkable quality of the community. And I will say we have such good children here. So I now have 4,200 additional children to love, which is just an incredible honor. And I'm just so proud to come to know Canby and to be in this role. I care about doing good work over time and growing deep roots here, really listening well to what matters to our students and our families, our educators and our community at large, and continuing to help build a really strong legacy of really good schools. So everywhere I go, people talk about their pride in our schools, connection that they have to our schools, and it's really clear to me that they're just a strong beacon and heartbeat of hope here. So I'm just honored to get to know who this community is and be of service to our children, which I would say is, without question, our most important asset.
Indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thank you and welcome.
I also
Yes.
just want to say I've had such a warm welcome and just really appreciate your outreach and invitation and time. Chief Davis has been incredibly kind to me and spent a lot of time from, I think I first met him at the fair in August, and very welcoming, and Eileen as well as city manager. So just really appreciate the incredible outreach from you, and just want to be a strong partner as we continue to lead together and on behalf of our students.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you and welcome.
Okay. Any others, Eileen?
No.
Nope. Okay. Next,
And I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me now.
we can, yes, we've got Councilor Maldonado joining us from Zoom. We want him to keep his plague in his house and not bring it here. So, welcome.
Or in
Thank
my
you.
office.
Okay, very good. Next on the agenda is citizen input and community announcements. This is the opportunity for audience members to address the city council on items that are not on the agenda. If you are attending in person and wish to speak, there are yellow cards in the back of the room that you can bring up to the recorder. Otherwise, for future notice, if you want to speak online, you need to get in touch with the deputy city recorder by 4:30 on the business day that we're having a meeting. Do we have anybody online at this time, Teresa? No. Okay, and I have no yellow cards and no one rushing to the front, so I think we're good for that. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda and approval of the December 4th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Patton to approve the minutes of the December 4th, 2024 city council regular meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's 6-0. And next up is a public hearing. I need my little script here. We're going to have a public hearing regarding the annexation and zone change for 1733 North Holly. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. The public hearing was noticed, and those who wish to speak were instructed to contact the deputy city recorder. We did not receive any requests in advance. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand or virtual hand at this time. Seeing none. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In doing so, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to spokesperson who will represent the entire group, which doesn't need to happen, apparently. All questions will be directed to the council president. All evidence to be considered must be submitted for the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. We'll have a staff report provided by our planning director. Questions, if any, by the hearing body or staff. Then we'll open the public testimony and close the hearing, and then we'll have more questions. Is there anyone have questions on the process? Seeing none, I will invite Dawn up for the staff report, accompanied by Emma.
We'll get to that.
Good evening, Council President Hensley and council members. I'm just going to do a quick introduction for Emma Porcolo, who's going to give our presentation tonight, and I'm just here to support.
Thank you, Don. Oh, sorry. Good evening, councilors. As Don mentioned, my name is Emma Porcolo. For those of you who I haven't met, I am an associate planner in the planning department here at the city. Tonight, I am presenting the staff overview of the annexation and zone change application for 1733 North Holly. It's good to go. So as I mentioned, we are discussing the application for the annexation and zone change at 1733 North Holly Street. To give you an orientation to the site is located slightly north of the intersection of Territorial and Holly Street. The site here is shown outlined in red. It directly abuts North Holly Street. Surrounding that, the area is entirely outside of the UGB. Outside the site. The site itself is in the UGB, with the exception of North Holly through this annexation. Currently, the site is zoned RRFF5, Clackamas County zoning, which is rural residential farm forest 5-acre zoning, which is a low-density residential zoning in the county. We are here tonight to discuss an annexation of the property. So the property, or the area proposed for annexation is shown here, outlined as red. It shows both the square area of the property, which is approximately 3.39 acres. It also shows approximately 0.44 acres of North Holly Street being annexed into the city along with the subject property. This area of North Holly Street to be annexed is currently under Clackamas County jurisdiction and ownership, and with annexation will remain under Clackamas County ownership until we choose to take it on through jurisdictional transfer, but will be incorporated into the city limits. This here shows the site. Let's see, which one is that? So this is the subject site here on the property, and the purpose of this slide is just to show you what the current UGB boundaries are. Our urban growth boundary is shown outlined in red. It is kind of hard to see here, but the black dash line is the current city limits. This boundary was established in 2005. This area here just gives you a sense of kind of in this northwest area of town of our UGB, what has currently not been annexed. Across from the site is Dodds subdivision. So this area here in the light yellow pale color is Dodds subdivision that has currently predominantly been entirely developed to my knowledge. And that is across North Holly. So the comprehensive plan map shows the land use designations for the properties outside city limits, and we use this as a proxy for what we believe the zoning should be upon annexation. So the comprehensive plan map for this lot shows a LDR, low density residential zoning, shown here in the light yellow color. And as shown here, the zoning is currently undesignated in the city, but is proposed to be R1 zoning, and the adjacent property that's partially Dodds subdivision is also zoned R1 within the city limits. So the two applications are the annexation to bring the area that I showed prior into the city limits. That is the application ANN 2401. In tandem with that is the application to apply city zoning to the property, which is the application ZC 2401. This request to apply R1 zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan designation for the site as I showed prior. So for the application, these are the applicable criteria. R1 residential zoning, criteria for amendments to a zoning map, essentially the zone change, annexation criteria, and our general standards for applications for land use applications and processes for that application. So we're first going to review the approval criteria for the annexation. The approval criteria for the annexation could generally be summed up into these four criteria here that you see. The first one is consistency with the development concept plan. A development concept plan, let me get to a development concept plan is essentially a preliminary master plan for zoning, utilities, general street layout and circulation within an area. A DCP is required pursuant to our annexation criteria in our code. The code chapter for annexation say what and where in the city a DCP is required in order to be annexed into the city. So in this case, the subject property shown here in yellow is located within the North Holly Development Concept Plan area. So this North Holly Development Concept Plan area is designated by our zoning code. The development concept plan was created and adopted ultimately in 2019 when the area of Dodds subdivision was proposed for annexation and ultimately approved, and that was back in 2019. So you can see here the DCP is outlined in this blue line, but the area that was proposed for development at the time when the DCP was created is shown here in red. So the North Holly DCP applies to this property and has been used to analyze this application and propose plans for the lot. In the pre-application meeting, which is the preliminary meeting that we have for land use applications, the street layout was flagged by staff. Staff had a concern with the south stub proposed. In the DCP, you can see here there is an east-west crossing road, and there's a small road stub proposed to the south. Planning staff, as well as Public Works and our city traffic consultant, DKS, discussed this stub to the south that was initially proposed in the DCP. And after taking a closer look, there were some concerns regarding safe layout of future streets in the area, street spacing standards, just general overall circulation for the area. If you think about, oops, that was not what I wanted to do. If you think about this area to the south, this road there creates a pinch point there with being sure to meet access spacing standards and create, just generally use the land to the best of the ability for reasonable and good layout of development. Yes. And so after further discussion amongst ourselves, Public Works and DKS, we requested that DCP remove this sub to the south. And so that has resulted, and this is a preliminary plan that shows the DCP plan without the stub to the south, and in lieu of the street stub, it shows multi-use pedestrian pathways on the north and south side of the site, but keeps that east-west proposed to be Northwest 16th Avenue. The remaining criteria for the annexation are the land need for additional property in city limits. As you all may remember, we recently adopted the housing needs analysis for the city. That housing needs analysis showed that we need 22.6 acres of additional land in our UGB to meet our housing needs. So this is a property that's already in the UGB, so that supports the need for bringing in land that's already within the UGB to meet our housing needs on top of the land that was determined in the housing needs analysis. Neighborhood compatibility is the next criteria. This is located in an area that's surrounded by the UGB, surrounded by farmland currently. This is the lowest density zoning that this could come into. This is R1 zoning. Low density residential zoning, we don't have a lower density zone than this, so generally it's the lowest impact of bringing into the city and city designation for the property, which is compatible with the surrounding area, as well as the single family subdivision, which is Dodds, located across the street. And capacity of facilities and services, this is addressed through the DCP. The DCP was approved, and we have been reviewing the preliminary plans that have been consistent with the DCP and have been able to meet the proposed facilities and services, such as, should we take questions now?
Just finish yours.
Okay, sorry.
I was gonna finish your thought.
No, okay. So it meets the capacities or it has the capacity to meet the needs for facilities and services in the area, as well as through the discussions to get to today, we've incorporated utility and service providers in discussions, and no preliminary concerns have been flagged. Of course, this application does not authorize any development. This is purely to bring the land into the city and apply city zoning. So that's something to keep in mind. There will be further discussions about, the specifics of the facilities and services, but essentially at this point, knowing the capacity is there. Should I take a question? Councilor
Oh, I apologize for interrupting.
No worries.
I have a short attention span, so if I have a question, I need to ask it within that attention span. So the question I have is, what is the lowest density zoning? What is the lowest, how many, houses per acre is that lowest density? Just as, that's my question.
Sure. We don't have a minimum density in our residential zones currently, but the minimum lot size in the zone is 7,000 square feet. And then the maximum is 10,000 square feet.
So we're talking about between 7 and 10,000,
You're looking at roughly 6 units an acre is what you're
6
looking
units an
at.
acre.
And so, as I mentioned, this application does not authorize any development, but however, through this application process, the applicant, has shared preliminary plans. These are purely preliminary. And they will have to confirm, but I believe they're proposing about 16 lots on this site,
Okay.
and which is about almost 3.5 acres.
And then the lack of the stubs adds how many houses to that mix?
We believe it's a plus or minus of one lot.
One lot,
Yeah.
okay.
But the applicants are kind of the ones designing it, so they may be able to speak
But
better to
the
that.
final decisions on whether to do the stubs or not is not on this meeting, it's just as for later, or are we approving the street layout plan?
This is just the annexation and the zone change.
Okay. yeah.
We would like your concurrence on our request for the change, though, to the stub to go to the west. There's a circulation issue that this involves as well, looking at future development of property that's not currently in the urban growth boundary expansion, that's likely to come into the urban growth boundary expansion through our urban growth boundary expansion process we're currently doing now. It's likely to come in due to the need for acreage and the fact that it's adjacent, and the properties there's some that are completely surrounded by urban development. So that we believe the circulatory pattern is important, that we not push the road to the south and we push the road to the west. So we would like the DCP to be part of your decision tonight, the revision to that, which would then, as Emma was speaking about, would go to the Planning Commission through a subdivision process with the details of the construction level plan, which you're not looking at tonight, but would deal with all the other elements in that process. Yes, Councilor Davis, yeah.
May I suggest they have 2 more slides?
Okay.
Jot down your questions and let them finish the presentation, because they may answer your question before we get there.
I know it's really rich material.
Sorry about that,
So as well as the annexation application, we have a zone change application. The approval criteria for a zone change application are first consistency with the comp plan. As I mentioned, the comp plan assumes low-density residential, which translate to R1 zoning, which is proposed. So we have met that criteria. Adequate public facilities and services, we just discussed previously on the last slide. That is supported by the adopted DCP. And the last is transportation planning rule consistency, and that is the state law regarding zone changes. The proposed development is consistent with the TPR because essentially the intended uses are not changing. It will remain low-density residential, therefore it's not changing significantly in character and meets the TPR. So to conclude my presentation, based on the application submitted, the facts and findings and conclusions of the staff report, planning staff recommend City Council approve annexation 2401 and zone change 2401. And that
Okay.
concludes my presentation.
Very nice. Thank you, Emma and Don. And I will, yes, Councilor Davis has a question.
Yeah, thank you. Good presentation, appreciate it. Do you know when they want to develop this, if it's annexed into the city?
We'll let the applicants who are here speak to that. I believe they're moving this rather quickly forward. They're wanting to actually go right into the subdivision process. So I don't know the exact timing of the construction, but I believe it would be rather quick. That's our belief. At least the land use entitlement process would be quick. The actual construction, I'm not sure about. I can't answer that question.
Okay, second question is, what's the distance from Holly to the end of that subdivision?
Go ahead.
It's about 600 square feet. I think a little more.
600 feet, 600 feet. So,
Oh, sorry, feet, yeah.
and so that, maybe just to focus on that a bit on the DCP part again. In looking at this, we look at the street spacing standards from Holly to the west, and there's a minimum standard, but that minimum standard also is influenced by queuing and site visibility issues, which this DCP in 2019, we do not believe that meets spacing standards, even though that was approved. That is our belief as staff. That's a concurrence between Public Works, Planning, and DKS. It would create challenges with that current layout due to the proximity. If you put it on Hawthorne instead of Grant, which would be where that would end up lying if you were to take it straight down, and the applicants will have another additional slides that show more information. But if you went it all the way over to Grant, it would be 600 feet, which would meet the spacing and provide the adequacy that would be appropriate for that. I think having that go south, that sub would create a pinch point. It would create very challenging lot configuration when you put that stub through to the south. And again, that property to the south and west is likely to come into the urban growth boundary as well. It's definitely high priority, given the criteria for Goal 14 analysis that we're doing now. It's adjacent to the city and directly abutting, very likely to be a high candidate for that coming in. So we're trying to be a bit proactive here in the sense that we're doing an urban growth boundary expansion, and we would be concerned anyway, but we're even more concerned now because this UGB expansion, we can now start to see that how this is going to play out over time. Yeah.
I'll just also add to consider, so as we proposed removing the stub, it offers the most flexibility in the long term for what could, how the development could shape out all around the lot. Once you put the stub in, then you then have to think about, you have to have spacing from that street to the next street, right? And how do the connections basically go out from there? So by removing the stub, that gives more opportunity to move another connection closer to the edge of the lot, but and just generally around kind of gives the most flexibility for what we can do in the future. So that's another big benefit as well of this change that we've discussed.
Okay, I just think that it's important to be very transparent with them, and because we're anticipating the UGB to be expanded in order to gain those access ways. But if they're planning on moving this forward, they still have to go through the services, and which I don't know what point the second access way is required for this. But numerous other subdivisions have required a second access way in order to do a subdivision. What seems to be they would have to wait for that to occur before they could develop that.
So in the planning, the development code, what triggers two accesses needs is 30 lots. And so we're at about,
lots?
we're at about
Okay.
16. So we're definitely, in a safe range currently.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And just maybe to add a bit more to this, and I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but our concept planning that we're going to be doing for the urban growth boundary expansion, we received a fairly large grant from Oregon Department of Transportation. That work is going to start July 1, 25. If that property if that is intended to come into the UGB, the property that's around it, there will be conditions around those properties that are in the concept planning, not the property we're talking about tonight, but the adjacent properties. And that will be, the circulation system will be required of those properties to come in. So we're trying to plan these puzzle pieces out while we're going through this, and also be transparent about those properties, if they do come into the UGB, that there's going to be conditions on those about access and what the requirements are. So it's, again, a bit of a challenge here because you got this kind of oddly shaped piece that's going out into an area that I'm not even sure how that got formed, but it's a little weird, but it is what it is, and that's what we're dealing with tonight. But just trying to how that connects back to the property to the west is important on that. But I think it's timely that we'll be going through that exercise of concept planning over next fiscal year, 25, 26, and that will start to also address that issue a bit more definitively. So while the subdivision is probably being built, there'll be other things going on about the future of that circulation network.
Yes, Councilor Sassy.
I just want to commend you, Emma, for having the vision, because I have a lot of friends that live out there, so it's nice to hear what roads down the future are we going to need instead of piecing it together. So thank you very much.
Councilor Patton, I'm sorry. I
No,
thought I
you're
saw
fine,
you in my
no.
peripheral, but I wasn't sure.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure that we're, as far as the public hearing process goes, that we're to the point of the questions of staff, or do we have to do the ex parte contact stuff, or?
We're just doing the staff report and questions of staff.
Okay, great. I do have a couple of questions. One is I completely agree with cutting the stub out there. I think it makes total sense. And I have all confidence that when the plan comes through to Planning Commission, they'll review that and, make those decisions accordingly. My question is on one of the slides where you have the red line outlining what will be annexed in, the street from right there, that one, you can see that the street, not only in front of the property, but all the way down to the intersection of Holly is in that area. is there a plan or an understanding that as part of this development, they will be required to do more than a half-street improvement in front of their particular lot? Or is that just to bring that section of the city street out from county into the city?
I think it's both to start to clean up, just consistency of city lines or kind of city area in that area, as well as not to, as well to ease kind of what they can construct for what's required. I don't expect that that would come at the subdivision transportation study level.
Okay.
But we don't anticipate that. It's mostly just ease of frontage improvements and making the changes as they go.
Okay, yeah,
for,
just so like the dotted
subdivision.
line include.
Yeah, so kind of
is
similar, you can
encompassing
see
all of
Dodds
that
did the same thing to the north. This dashed line is city limits there, so Dodds, also incorporated
Okay.
a fair amount.
And the last thing I will just say is, I agree that these things need to happen, and this is a fairly good-sized chunk of property that has been sitting for quite some time in the city limits that has not been developed. But I can say that it will be sad. The way that this looks is that the house will have to be raised, and it is unfortunate because it is a very relatively untouched piece of mid-century modern architecture, and it will be sad to see it be destroyed. So that is all I had.
I concur with that sentiment, but it's not our purview, unfortunately. Any other questions of staff? Councilor Maldonado, did you have any questions? If so, please raise your virtual hand.
I do not, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing in the present matter. Councilor Patton.
I did attend an estate sale at this property several months ago and did have a conversation with several members of the family about the house, what some of the intentions were with the property and such. But it does not create a conflict.
Councilor Davis.
No conflict, no contact with
You'll
them.
participate? Okay. Councilor Stearns?
I don't think I have a conflict.
No conflict.
Okay. And now also, if any member of the hearing body has had ex parte contact, which was already given, but that's okay, with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time.
I've already declared no conflict.
None.
Stearns?
None.
Councilor Maldonado?
None.
Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for Councilor or Mayor regarding ex parte contact or conflict of interest? Seeing none?
So sorry, could I jump in real fast just to clarify on the record that Councilor Patton still is able to render an unbiased decision in this matter?
Yes.
That's a yes. Okay, thank you.
And thank you for that. All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Proponents will have not more than 5 minutes, opponents not more than 5 minutes. Are there any proponents or opponents that has signed on since we've just started this? Yes.
I'm going to be presenting on behalf of the applicant prior to public testimony.
Okay. That was not on my script. Apologize. Very well. Introduce yourself, and then we'll be glad to hear your testimony.
Sure, thanks. Good evening, and thank you for your time. Councilors, my name is Marie Holliday with AKS Engineering and Forestry, and for the record, my address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Suite 100, Tualatin, Oregon, 97062. And up for your consideration tonight is the North Holly Street annexation and zone change. This project, is there a specific place I should point this toward?
Help.
Did I bring up the wrong one? Let me try that again.
Sure.
Yeah, it was working for staff.
There it goes.
There we go.
Just the next.
Sometimes there's an extra click that has to happen over here. I've noticed.
Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so this project was a culmination of efforts on behalf of the applicant, Venture Properties. And again, my name is Marie Holliday with AKS Engineering, and our firm provided the land use planning, civil engineering, and other services for the project. And with me this evening is Darko Simic, the project engineer, and he'll be available for any questions that you might have. So diving right into the project overview, the site is generally located west of the City of Canby limits. You can see there the site is outlined in a white border just north of Territorial Road and south of Northwest 22nd Avenue, and it abuts North Holly Street there to the east. As staff mentioned, North Holly Street is currently under the jurisdiction of Clackamas County, and the city can file for a jurisdictional transfer in the future as they wish. The total annexation area amounts to 3.83 acres. And this evening, there are two applications under review. The first is for the annexation, and the second is for the zone change, which will apply the city's forecasted zoning. On the screen is a graphic illustrating the annexation overview, and shown there in purple shading identifies the total annexation area. The parcel itself is 3.39 acres, which will be annexed into city limits, and the annexation also includes 0.44 acres of public right-of-way. So you can see there that North Holly Street will eventually connect to Territorial Road there through the annexation. Staff gave a thorough presentation, so I'll try and stay brief here. The annexation approval criteria of Chapter 16.84 are shown on the screen. These criteria generally ensure that the site can be reasonably urbanized. The staff findings for these criteria are demonstrated on page 6 of the staff report, and staff have found that all of the criteria have been met. So kind of a general overview, again, a development concept plan is required for certain properties that are shown on the annexation map in the development code. And we've heard tonight that this property was already included in an approved and adopted DCP. The second criteria relates to the need for additional residential land need in the city. And considering the city is expanding their UGB currently, won't go into too much detail, but there is a need for housing. Generally, infrastructure is available to be extended to serve the site, and the city has capacity to provide those services. The public comments from agencies relating to city sewer and water and utilities have shown that those services can be provided. And then generally, it's not on the screen here for you, but the main component of the zone change application relates to the transportation planning rule. And the city's transportation engineering firm is DKS Associates, and they provided the TPR assessment, which concluded that this application will not have a significant impact on the transportation system. So happy to come back to these criteria. Again, the findings are on page 6 of the staff report, and staff have shown that those have been met. On the screen is now the City of Canby's comprehensive plan. Shown there to the left is a blown up bubble of the site. The red dashed line is the urban growth boundary. So the site is within the UGB and is forecasted for urban development, but it is not currently within city limits, which is shown there with the black dash boundary. Moving on, now here is shown the City of Canby zoning. Again, the site is currently within Clackamas County and holds residential rural forest farm at 5 acres. The green area shown basically around the subject property there is light green, and that is zoned for exclusive farm use. The subject site there is shown with a blue boundary, and the yellow shading indicates that the property is applying the forecasted zoning designation for low-density residential, which amounts to the R1 zoning designation. The approved and adopted development concept plan is shown here on the screen with the blue boundary. The site was included in this review, and the file was adopted in 2018 with the annexation of the land, which is now known as the Dodds Farm subdivision. Basically, the DCP, as Emma mentioned, it basically forecasts development for the property and shows that services can be extended through the site. This amounts to city sewer, water, a street network that meets city access, spacing, site distance, and other factors such as capacity. And to the left of the screen, you can see here the subject site is blown up from the development concept plan. So this was what was originally approved in 2018. It again shows a street stub to the west, which would connect future development. Outside of, in the county right now, that is again zoned exclusive farm use, and so that road won't be connected currently, or maybe not even in the near term. And then the stub to the south there, we had heard some staff conversation about that. Essentially, through review with DKS and city's public works, they shadow platted the area outside of the UGB and found that that street stub would not meet access spacing and basically creates that undesirable pinch point that staff had spoken to. So a future and subsequent land division will dedicate the right-of-way for North Holly Street and conform to the DCP, as well as show how those specific capacity standards are met. One of the annexation criteria relates to demonstrating that the city has a need for additional residential land within city limits. The Canby Housing Needs Analysis was recently adopted, and the 20-year planning period ends in 2043. That analysis showed that Canby has a demand for well over 2,000 dwelling units across many zoning categories. As it relates to this project, there are 555 single-family detached homes needed in the housing needs analysis, and this project would provide approximately 16 homes. And considering that the city-led UGB expansion is underway, the land currently within the UGB, but outside limits, city limits, should be considered first and foremost for annexation. This project provides needed housing consistent with the Canby Comprehensive Plan. It also implements the city's land use pattern vision for the area by applying the forecasted R1 zoning designation. The project unlocks the southwestern edge of the North Holly DCP area, which again was adopted in 2018 and already reviewed and forecasted for urbanization. Future infrastructure improvements and connections will be provided with a subsequent subdivision, including system development charges and additional tax base for the city. So I'm going to skip ahead here to one more slide. So again, the city's transportation engineer is DKS and Associates, and they provided the transportation planning rule analysis. It concludes that the annexation request will not create a significant impact on the transportation system. So basically, the future land uses and development, the traffic generated from those trips would not create a significant impact on the existing system. Is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan because it again applies the forecasted zoning and in turn is consistent with the TSP. So since we had so much conversation on kind of the street network, I figured I should just maybe start now and kind of touch on some of the councilors' questions here tonight. So the site is shown there with the blue outline that abuts Holly Street. Currently, Holly Street does connect to Territorial and is in full action for cars to pass through there. As you can see further down Territorial, Grant and Elm Street there to the south of Territorial already exist. And so the idea is that future development would extend those streets forward and create more of a street grid. And when we went to the Planning Commission hearing, we heard from staff that some concerns that Birch Street was the only closest connection to Holly Street. And in the future, that won't be the case. You can see here that there would be roads planned for future extension. Here's a zoomed in version of that preferred transportation concept. So the pinch point that staff were speaking to just recently is kind of shown here. This land just south of the project, it's a weird shape, and if a street stub was to be future layout and great use of that land. So through review with DKS and city staff, they provided concerns prior to our application submittal. So we went ahead and helped them forecast some of this development and shadow plat some of this area and come to the conclusion that a street stub wouldn't be desired there. The street stub to the west is still maintained to help with connectivity in the future, but once this property is annexed, that street stub will likely just be barricaded until the UGB is expanded and streets are formed through there. So happy to come back to these slides, but in closing, staff recommended approval of the application, and again, those criteria begin at page 6 of the staff report. The Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval. We thank you for your time this evening and would appreciate a vote to approve the annexation and zone change.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for this proponent? Councilor Stearns?
Oh, just quick question. Probably I should already know this, but kind of dumb question. So AKS, are you the property owner or are you representing the property owner?
We're representing Venture Properties.
Okay, so you're representing Venture Properties, and so they've hired you to, okay.
Yeah.
I just was unclear about the relationship.
Yeah, Venture Properties is under contract to purchase the property. It's currently in a different ownership.
Okay, so basically, it's going to sell to Ventures, and Ventures hired you, okay, so.
Yeah.
And, yeah, okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other proponents? Any opponents? Okay, the council's decision regarding this annexation application will take place at the end of this hearing, which will be momentarily, and the final decision is filed will be reflected in a first and second reading of the associated annex ordinance, which is the next item on the agenda. So with that, I will close the public hearing, and we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is ordinance number 1638. Councilor Patton.
I move to approve ordinance number 1638, proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 3.39 acres of real property described as tax lot 01900, situated southwest 1/4 of section 28 T3S R1E WM, tax map 31E 28C, and approximately 0.44 acres of adjacent North Holly Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5 acres RRFF5 to city low-density residential R1 for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits, ANN 25-01 and ZC 24-01, to a second reading on January 8th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve ordinance number 1638, proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 3.39 acres of real property described as tax lot 01900, situated southwest quarter of section 28 T3S R1E WM, tax map 31E28C, and approximately 0.44 acres of adjacent North Holly Street of right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5 acre RRFF5 to city low density residential R1 for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits, ANN 2401 and ZC 2401, to second reading on January 8th, 2025. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes 6-0. Thank you. Now we're going to take a quick step backward because I got overzealous on my check marking and I missed a step before the public hearing. We've got a proclamation for the election to read. Whereas the City of Canby County of Clackamas, Oregon, held an election on November 5th, 2024, and whereas the Clackamas County Elections Department offers the following abstract as an official count of the votes as of December 2nd, 2024. Mayor Brian D. Hodson, 5,889. Undervotes, 1,503. Overvotes, 0. Write-in, 76. David Tate, 3,033 votes. Undervotes, 1,503. Undervotes, 0. Write-ins, 76. Counselor Paul Waterman, 4,591. Sean Varwig, 4,491. Jason Patton, 5,084. Daniel Stearns, 5,069. Tracy Hensley, 5,311. Undervotes, 17,034. Overvotes, 15, and write-ins, 364. Whereas the 3 counselor candidates who received the highest number of votes will have 4-year terms, whereas the counselor candidate who received the 4th highest number of votes will have a 2-year term. Now, therefore, I, Tracy Hensley, Council President of the City of Canby, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the foregoing to be a true and accurate accounting as presented by the Clackamas County Elections Division dated December 2nd, 2024, dated this 18th day of December 2024. And I have signed this. I'll give this to you at the end. All right, next thing on the agenda is ordinance number 1637. This is a second reading. Do we have anything new to offer on this? We kind of beat it to death last time, I think.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Got-
Not quite, we
got
have
a
something new.
Tiny bit more to go over
Okay,
this.
well, we have new information.
But
That's
I will be so, is the mic into this? Yeah, there we go. I will be so brief. So last discussion, we centered on 2 points. The first was a timeline for the Canby Adult Center to move to their new building, kind of a question mark there. And the second was also a timeline, but for the Canby Adult Center to use any funds we end up dispersing to them. So since last meeting, I've gone back, Eileen and I spoke to the Canby Adult Center's representatives. They are unable to give us a specific timeline for the move to the new building. I think kind of understandably, it's a big undertaking for them. But we did talk about putting into the agreement some language that would require them to spend the money within a certain amount of time. And we floated a year across the table as something reasonable. They said that's great, we can definitely do that. As we talked about last time, their intent is to use the money we give them as part of their down payment. And they stated that their goal is to close on the deal within the first quarter of 2025. And then reaffirmed that they are full steam ahead. They have every single interest in completing the physical move to the new building as soon as possible. So, given all that, one minor revision to the agreement you reviewed last time, I've added language that says that they must use the funds we disperse within 1 year of the date of disbursement to cover that side. And unfortunately, I don't have anything for you on the actual physical move, but it's certainly something we will keep an eye on as we go through the process. So in front of you today is the option to adopt through the second reading. In the ordinance, we have language that says that council is deemed advisable for the ordinance to go into effect immediately. So once we do that, then Eileen has the flexibility to sign the agreement after we confirm with the county that they're going to give us that letter that tells us everything is okay on the CDBG side. So fast. Any questions?
Thank you.
No, the only question is that any language change in the agreement doesn't constitute starting it back at first reading again? Okay,
Does not, no, because we got, flexibility was built into the ordinance language. So we are clear to proceed to the second reading.
Okay, any
if that's what you
questions from?
The only other thing I would add is that in section 3C, that language was added that gives them up to a year. So I just wanted you to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. So highlighted line there. Yes, Councilor Davis.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Are there any other questions first from, well, we can do that
Discussion after the motion.
in discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
I move to approve ordinance 1637, an ordinance approving transfer of funds from the City of Canby's general fund unallocated requirements to the Canby Adult Center.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Patton to adopt ordinance number 1637, an ordinance approving transfer of funds from the City of Canby's general fund unallocated requirements to the Canby Adult Center. Any discussion? Councilor Stearns.
I just kind of want to iterate what I kind of said last time. Although I'm in favor of the concept of doing this, I'm not opposed to it at all. I think there's inadequate things in the contract to identify events that would cause a failure of the transition to happen. And my concern, of course, is that we would be stuck with the need to renovate the building for the adult center, and at the same time, we not have the funds to renovate the adult center should something be unforeseen cause the transfer to stall for a long enough period of time where that would become necessary. So that, I guess, is my concern. We hope there's no failure. We don't want there to be any failure. But I think a responsible plan would anticipate how that would be defined, and that's, of course, the time period. And I'm not even that worried about whether it's 2 years or 3 years, but there has to be a certain point where we say, hey, you didn't move, even though you said you would. And it doesn't have to be anybody's fault. It could be unforeseen circumstances that no one intended. But I think something like that should be put into the contract somehow or other so that can be identified and dealt with. So that's my concern with this.
Okay. Anything else? Councilor Patton?
I would just say I understand where Councilor Stearns is coming from, and I guess I would say as a way to kind of mitigate that, if a task could be given to city staff to really look at what the longevity of that building they're currently in is, and kind of what the trigger points will be for need of updating HVAC and those sort of things. Will it be realistically viable for 2 years, 4 years, those sort of things, to then eventually kind of create a more comprehensive plan of how they will move, how and when they will be moving out of that building. Does that make sense?
You had me till the end there.
As far, if it is, hey, we can pretty much guarantee that the HVAC system isn't going to fall through the ceiling in the next 3 years, bam. Or we think it might half fall through by year 2, so you better make a plan to be out of here by year 2. Like kind of get a more in-depth idea of what the longevity of that building is before we're going to have to sink money into getting some of this stuff fixed. So that way they have that information to then build their move plan based on that. Does that make sense?
You had me till the end. I think that they will have moved from the building. So are you talking about what happens if the HVAC system, for example, needs to be replaced? They have already moved from the building.
No. I'm talking about, it could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. That they make their move. We are responsible for the various systems in that building. If we review it and say, look, we are confident that this HVAC system will continue to run without having to put money into it for 2 years, then say, you need to base your plan on getting out of here in 2 years, because we will not be updating the HVAC system.
Right.
So that way they, rather than them creating a plan and then all of a sudden, like a year from now that dies, and we don't want to put any money into it, at least they have some idea of how they're going to, when they need to make their move. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Clear as mud. Okay. All right, any other? Yes, Councilor?
Just to follow up on what you're saying, the one thing I don't know, which I don't think is presented to me, is how long are these systems that were supposed to be replaced with the original funding are expected to last? And will that time period allow for the Canby Adult Center to continue to function in its current location without the need to spend the money twice, in other words?
Yeah.
That's done now. Okay.
Call
Good.
for the question.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Sassy.
Aye.
Counselor Stearns.
No.
Okay.
Counselor Davis.
Aye.
Council President Hensley.
Aye.
Counselor Maldonado.
Aye.
And Counselor Patton.
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-1. Okay, moving on to old business. We have an update on the transit office building, and I believe we have Todd in Zoom land.
I am in Zoom land. I apologize for not being there. I have gotten the flu. Seems to be going around these days, so didn't figure you wanted it shared.
Appreciate that.
I wanted to bring you up to date on the building and just kind of get a little bit of a take from you all. There's no real decisions to make tonight, but we've run into a brick wall called the FTA, and it's caused basically a halt to our building project. Let me explain what has happened. The FTA is probably our greatest source of grant money, and when we did this, started this project, and we got the cost estimate, it came out to about $10 million. So I came, I think about 2.5 weeks ago and said we need to do this NEPA process in order to get FTA funds. So we started the NEPA process and got barely into it before the FTA shut us down. Basically what we learned from the FTA is because of the way we purchased the property, we are not eligible for any federal transit funds to build that building. They have a very specific process we need to follow. We didn't follow that process when we purchased this, and so they will not allow us to use any FTA funds to build our building, and will not allow us to apply for any grants for that building. Now, to be fair to my predecessor at the time, things cost about half of what they did, and we were going to be able to fund it pretty much out of our own pockets, so the FTA was not necessary. And so she chose not to do that, thinking that with all the extra strings the FTA adds, it makes it much more challenging. I would have made the same decision at the same time. Unfortunately, COVID happened, the world changed, and the costs skyrocketed. So we're now in a position where, in order to build out this property, I am $7 to $7.5 million short. I cannot apply for any FTA funds to build this building. On top of which, I applied for multiple state grants, and every one of my state grants was turned down, mostly because there is limited funds out there in the state these days, and there were far more projects that were asked money for, and so we just came out, unfortunately, got the short end of the stick. So I have zero grant funding at this point, and zero opportunity for grant funding for this building. Which puts me in a sticky situation because I can't build a building if I can't fund it. I've got about 4 or 5 different options that are out there that I just kind of wanted to bring up to y'all. The first option is that we break this project into multiple pieces. We met, we talked about the multiple pieces. We could break it down to about a $5 million piece for just the building itself, keep the lot the way it is. If we do that, however, I'm going to have to go to get a loan for the other $2.5 million. There is a transit bank that you can get low interest loans, and the city's credit is very good. But the question is, can our transit fund make the payments on that? Because you're talking about $10,000 a month payments on a $2 to $2.5 million loan, depending on the interest levels. The other option is we sell the property and go buy a different property following the FTA guidelines. Obviously a very expensive and time-consuming option, but that would allow us to actually apply for FTA funds. The other, go out for a bond and try to get a bond to get the money to pay for it. And I think that's it, actually. Realistically, those are our main options, either breaking it up into small pieces, going out for a loan, trying to get a bond, or selling the property and trying to move that building somewhere else following the FTA guidelines to get that. But in our current state, we cannot move forward because we do not have the cash to move forward, and we have no real way to get the cash to move forward. So unfortunately, transit building is at an impasse. Questions?
Questions from the council? Councilor Patton.
So, thank you for the update, Todd. My question is you say it's the way the property was purchased is the problem. If the property was purchased the proper way, would it qualify, or is there problems with the property itself?
No, if the property was purchased, so the NEPA process has to be done before you buy the property. It's a very bizarre order of operation with the FTA. It's very unique to the FTA. It does not exist that way in other federal funding pools, just the FTA. So you have to do the NEPA process before you buy the property. So I'm pretty sure we would have passed the NEPA process without any issues, but you don't know until you go through the NEPA process to be sure.
So I will have a few follow-up questions as we go through this, if that's okay.
That's fine. I'm seeing if you're going to go down the same
Going
rabbit
down
hole
a
I
rabbit
am
hole
in
here.
my brain.
So the property was purchased by the city for like the transit center,
Correct.
but was it purchased specifically like by transit?
Doesn't matter.
Huh?
It's the intent of what you purchased it for, not whether it was purchased by transit or the city. I believe it was purchased by transit itself.
Okay.
But as far as the FTA goes, it's the intent. So if you say, I'm buying this to build a building, and you don't follow the NEPA process, then you are discluded from all federal funds.
So now this is the next question then. Is there a possibility of partnering with an agency, a trusted agency that is connected with the city, and sell them the property and then purchase the property back from them using the proper process?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You're well past that's where now you're into legal stuff. I don't know. I'm not a legal person. I don't know.
Emily?
I don't know how that would look. I don't know what the FTA would think of it, and I don't know if it's even legal to do, so.
Okay, because I guess what I'm envisioning is like, if we could make a agreement with like an agency that
Friendly with?
that we're friendly with within the city's organization, and say, we would like you to purchase this property, we will help through this whole process, with the understanding that we will be purchasing the property back from you under this circumstances to then hit all of these requirements. Could something like that be done?
Potentially, I can envision a world where we could structure a real estate transaction to accomplish that. I would want to check that if there's any grant language that prohibits such arrangements. I'm not going to say gamesmanship because it's not really gamesmanship, but such arrangement. Potentially, I guess. Not a full answer.
I'm sorry, I don't have the raise your hand feature over here.
Okay.
I would venture to guess that they may require a lapse in time before we were able to purchase it back. I've had to deal with a similar situation with one of our properties through my job. And they required that it needed to be within, or it had to wait for, I believe it was a year before we were able to purchase it back under those premises.
Counselor Davis.
It doesn't sound like we have enough information here tonight to make a decision on this anyway. I'd like to kick it over to the city administrator and have her either schedule a work session. Is this time sensitive, Todd?
No, I mean, I'm down for the count, so.
Okay, it sounds like we need further information.
We wanted to at least make the council aware
Yeah,
that that he
appreciate
had
that.
run into this, and then take your questions. So, if you had any other questions, avenues that you want us to explore or whatnot, then we could begin to explore those.
I'd kind of like you to go back and review this and bring a recommendation to us.
Great.
Yeah, and honestly, my brain went down the same rabbit hole as Counselor Haddon, and so I would like to see more what that would look like, if that can be option 4. So if that could be part of the presentation, scheduling a work session and discussing it further later.
Sure.
Counselor Stearns.
Well, I agree we should discuss it later more thoroughly, but I just have a burning question that I have is what is the proper procedure for purchasing a building for the FTA? Just
It's a very unique, unfortunately, very unique procedure. That procedure is you have to do a NEPA study before you even engage in discussions with the purchaser to purchase the property or put an offer on, and then get NEPA approval to move forward to put an offer on the property to purchase it.
Okay, I was just
Okay.
curious what fancy footwork and dance moves needed to take place.
It's a very, very strange, we've gone rounds and rounds with the FTA. It doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody, but it is what it is.
So I understand, I deal with that in my work about funding requirements. I just have to describe to my clients as this is a dance, that they want you to dance.
Yeah. Okay. All right, seeing no more hands raised, it sounds like you have your homework. Do you have any questions? Or are you clear on what our
I'm clear.
desires are?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no new business listed on the agenda. Is there new business, Eileen, that didn't make the agenda? All right. We'll go into counselor comments and liaison reports. I'll start because the mayor normally would. Went to Chief Davis's retirement, turning him back into Counselor Davis. That was a very nice ceremony and welcoming of Matt Dale as the new chief, and a very nice reception held later. So that was a good send-off into your retirement life. So thank you for including us. The Traffic Safety Commission, I mentioned last time that there was much discussion from neighbors on Northeast 10th about the traffic study and the traffic speeding. There was a traffic radar machine done, but those data points are on the city website, so you can look at that. But I know that Spencer was looking at moving it to a different area on 10th, so there'll probably be more data up there later. But I just wanted to make everybody aware that when we get those data points, they're now getting put onto the city website, so everybody can see what the traffic actually looks like, but what it perceives to be when it's outside your window. They're discussing more social media points. Reminder that there is a Facebook group called Canby Traffic Safety. It's not a page, it's a group, so you do have to ask to join it, but everybody's approved to join. They have very simple, focused, traffic-related posts on there. The gals on the board are doing a good job of keeping that up to date. Southwest 13th, behind the high school football practice fields. There's a lot of folks parking in the bike lane. They're working on trying to find a solution to that, but I guess my plea to the nines that are watching, don't park there. If the curb's yellow, it's yellow for a reason, so please keep Canby safe and not park in those yellow zones. Same thing's happening on Southwest Grant. So they're going to actually repaint some curbs because they're getting worn out. So that's going to be addressed in that way. That's all I have for traffic safety. And I just wanted to thank all the staff that did a wonderful Light the Night again. As usual, it was a wonderful event. The weather actually held out for us. Thank goodness. It was chilly, but it was dry, so I'm thankful for that. But it was a great time and a beautiful display by our staff members that put that event together. I just wanted to note, though, that Clackamas County sent a camera crew out. So on their YouTube channel, Clacco TV, you can watch the video of our Light Up the Night.
And Council, I did send that video link out to you tonight, so do take a look at it. It was really well done.
Nice, thank you. Okay, we'll start with Councilor Patton.
Thank you. So I also was able to attend Light the Night, participated in the parade, and while doing so, I tried to remember people to not rake their leaves into the street, as well as hoping that Santa was going to be visiting people and that the children should be good because he is watching, so watch yourself. I then also followed up by attending the event that happened for the group. They are essentially trying to, for the next day on that Saturday, well, it was raining pretty vigorously. There was quite a few vendors there, and I know they have bigger aspirations for that event, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that will grow over time. I attended the latest Planning Commission meeting where they approved the OLCC building. There was it was a little unorthodox how they got there, but they got it done in the end. And, I think it comes up, it reminds me that one of the things that we need to prioritize as we start into our goals is revisiting the number of employees per acre in our industrial park. It is too low, and I feel that it should be higher to encourage development in there that is more light industrial, which is what its original intention was, rather than miles and acres of just distribution centers. So that is one thing that will continue to be on my radar. The other thing is that we really need to look more heavily into ensuring that the infrastructure for those streets and stuff are there beforehand to support that. In my opinion, Walnut Street should have been built already, and we should be working on Haynes Road right now, but that is not where we're at. And so hopefully, now that the TSP is getting finished up, we'll be able to start to review those sort of things and make a game plan for that. I also was able to attend the ceremony for Councilor Davis as he transitioned the power over there at the fire department. They had a bagpiper there. My mom loves bagpipers, so she was very excited when I sent her that video. It was a fantastic ceremony, and congratulations for your many years of service to the many communities you've been a part of for that. So I commend you for that. Another organization that I'm part of that you don't hear of very often is the Willamette Falls Landing Heritage Area Coalition. We are within a month of getting into the historic Westland City Hall. So for almost a year now, they've been working on renovating that building. There has been tons of setbacks as far as parking negotiations, asbestos being found many times when we didn't think it was. Like in the windows, there was asbestos in the windows somehow, and that was like the third asbestos thing that they found that they didn't plan for. But the building we should be able to get occupancy by January, and then we will start moving our furniture in and start having our board meetings and stuff there, and then we'll begin the plan of building out the exhibits and the cases and stuff. The old Oregon City photos will move in there as well, and as a plug for them, it is a fundraiser for the organization, but they have thousands of historic pictures of all over the state of Oregon that you have access to, and you can print them as cards or painting or on mats and as posters. And so if you're interested in those sort of historic things, please do check out the old Oregon City photos. There was also a request made to Canby Utility regarding 10th Avenue or 10th Street. That will start to get rebuilt here in the near future, and there is a water main that goes under there. So there's been some requests that Canby Utility work with the city on getting that water main updated so that way it is, after the street is paved, they do not have to then cut it back open and replace that. There was some feathers ruffled, including mine, that within a year of paving North Redwood Street, they cut into that to do some work. And so it turns out there was some triggers that it sounds like we thought were happening that aren't. And so I'm looking forward to that getting sorted out to prevent those things in the future. And I'll have some more discussion on that when we get eventually to the street maintenance task force stuff at some point in time. And that's pretty much it for me, other than to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and have a very safe and Happy New Year. Do not drink and drive. Please, if you feel that you are going to imbibe, which is your call, make sure that you do not drive, not only for your safety, but the safety of the people that you share the roads and sidewalks and so on and so forth. So please keep that in mind. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Yes, call an Uber.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you. I want to start out by thanking Councilman Sassy. This will be his last city council meeting. And I thank you for your dedication, stepping up and participating on the city council. I'm sure we'll see you around town.
Yep.
So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And then I do also want to give my deepest gratitude to all for the council and the city administrator that had the opportunity to attend the transition of command. It went off real well. We had about 180, 190 people there. But more importantly, the citizens of Canby. It's been an honor to serve the Canby community, and especially the community that I live in. And I can't say enough about the well wishes that I'd received from the citizens of this great community. So I just personally want to thank everybody. You know, it's surreal, and I find myself sleeping through the night now, which is really unusual. And you know, so no, it's all good. So I'm having a good time. A few things in regards to the Park and Rec Committee. We had our meeting last night. Everybody's familiar with Mark's Place, which is tucked in off of Ivy and 16th, kind of north of the subdivision that's already there. They're well on their way in regards to Payless is the developer of that, and they're looking at the next phase, which is going all the way out to the river. And they came to the Park and Rec and had asked to be able to use the SDCs for parks that the city would receive to put in trees as well as lighting paths and things like that. And really, we're talking about a very short distance on that bike trail. And the bare minimum that they are required to put in is the asphalt going out there. And they had a very itemized list of cost that they would incur to do the full meal deal. And after lengthy discussion, the Park and Rec made a motion to just stick with, they termed it the Chevy plan rather than the Mercedes plan. But to add the trees, there was a lot of push to go ahead and do the trees because it would be a lot less now. And Jerry Nelzine feels comfortable by putting the trees in along the path. And the impacts of that, had we approved it, would have been over $400,000 of STCs that would have been put towards that. And we are already struggling as a Park and Rec Committee to come up with all the projects that we want to do. So the responsibility is out of the SDCs would be about $220,000, and that includes the asphalting, the grass, and the trees along that short distance, so that we pay for that now. And it was kind of felt that Mark's Place would be the ones that benefit from that. And at this point, because there's no way of extending that over to Ivy at this point, because as he said, the landowner there is perfectly happy where he's at and isn't wanting to sell his property or to extend that emerald necklace. So you'd have to come down through the subdivision, cross Ivy, and then back over to the other side. And so with that, I'm only saying that the Park and Rec Committee is making a recommendation and kicking it back to the city administrator to decide if a full-blown presentation by Payless has to come to the city council. But the Park and Rec Committee, that's what their recommendation was, is to just stick with the basic plan plus the trees. We also had a presentation from the Rotary and putting in sealed bookcases in our parks. And the full thing would be borne by the Rotary, including the upkeep. In other words, they're going to do the maintenance on the bookcases. They're going to stock the bookcases and work with the Public Works Director in regards to exactly where these bookcases will be installed. They install them to the satisfaction of Public Works. They're going to concrete them in and everything. And so they'll be very stout. And if they're vandalized at all, the Rotary will be responsible to replace them. And they have a subcommittee that is willing to, from the Rotary, to upkeep these bookcases in the parks. And so a motion was made to, from the Park and Rec anyway, to approve that and for them to meet with Jerry Nalzine to work out exactly which parks they would go in. There's some parks that we may not want to put them in. Community Park, where they could get vandalized very easily, continue to replace. And so Jerry will work with the Rotary to decide exactly how many and which parks that they would go in. If you've been down the bike trail or the logging road lately, you'll see some that have been put in there that the houses have actually put that out on the bike trail as well. And then the Bike and Ped committee was there to just say that they've been working on how to reduce the speeds and make the logging trail or bike trail safer. And I know that this is something that the police department and Chief Tro has been working with Jerry Nalzine on, as well as the bike committee. There's no rush on this because obviously the recommendations that they're making are going to require good weather to do, such as putting in a center line down the center that would require people, you know, if bikes are coming, to get inside their lane, and then posting, actually painting on the logging road 15 miles per hour, because they're at both ends right now, but people miss those signs. So if you put on there, you know, no more than 15 miles per hour on the bike trail. But these are some of the recommendations that they're making to the Park and Rec. More time to come because we're not, Jerry said we can't even paint it until probably June anyway because of the weather. So this will come back in front of the city council as well too, in regards to the final recommendations for that. So I really appreciate all the work of the Park and Rec committee. I appreciate the citizens that have been showing up and providing input to the Park and Rec committee. So anyway, any questions on the, yes?
I actually do. So I was actually on the planning commission that approved that development, and this very topic came up as far as how that was all going to work. And there were quite a few variances that they requested that the city approved for that entire project. If this does come across the dais, I would be very, I would have some serious questions about us in paying for these sort of things, because it is now then setting a precedent for other developments that want to come and use these funds to do work that they should be doing as part of their development.
I agree.
So I just, whatever the recommendation is going to be, I just know for a fact that some of these concerns came up by the planning commission members to this group when they did that. And so the fact that now all of a sudden this is a revelation is quite annoying to me.
Yes.
And I'm a little annoyed that they would then come here and request funding for that. So that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that as annoying as when they want to give us a piece of land in lieu of SDCs. I don't want that either.
Right.
So.
Right, well, and we're really struggling trying to do everything that we want to do that's in the park master plan.
Right.
You know, and making sure that there's funds there for those projects as well. So anything that we were to provide over to the Emerald Necklace is going to take away from something else.
Yeah.
So that's it, as well as just wishing everybody Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Okay. Councilor Stearns.
Okay. Turn on the microphone. Councilor Davis actually reported pretty much all the issues that we talked about at the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, so I can skip that. I just wanted to thank the whole city council. This is my first full year on this council, and I think all the councilors have been very, very nice to me and made it a good experience. I thank you, Councilor Sassy, for serving with me. And Eileen also has been, and all the city staff have been very nice and responsive. to my particular requests and needs. I just thank you for serving as the fire chief. I just wanted to compliment you. I think this fire department is one of the best government agencies I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of them. Just as an example, I had an issue, which comes up a lot, with the fire department, and it was resolved very quickly, very responsibly. Everybody took ownership of the issue, and I was frankly very pleasantly surprised and shocked about how it was resolved, and it doesn't really matter what the issue is for our purposes here. But I just want to say that just it in itself indicates a very well run department, and so I just like to thank you for that. As we start the new year, I just wanted to say a couple of thoughts I have about some of the directions I want to go, just so we can talk about it, later in detail. But I think that, everything's been positive so far, but I think there's always room for improvements. One of the things that concerns I have is the idea of maybe doing some cleanup on some parts of Canby that are considered maybe dangerous to live in or be around in, and I don't know that we really address that too often. Some of the places I've actually lived in before, that we got to know the police department very well in those places, and it was always pleasant, the interactions, but I think that needs to be addressed somehow or other, or at least attempted to be addressed. Sometimes we can't fix things, but I think we need to at least try. I want to see if there's any way that we can attract higher paying jobs to Canby so that people can afford to live and work here. I don't think there's enough of those here, as we see from the traffic studies. I think somewhere around 80-something% of the people who live here don't work here, and it's 80-something% of the people that work here don't live here. And I think that those numbers could stand to go down just a little bit. And maybe work on better ways of transparency at the city government. And of course, all those goals are things that probably will never ever be finished, but I think we could work towards at least those directions. I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I just hope for and expect better things for Canby next year, because I hope it's just going to get better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Maldonado. I'm saving you for last.
He has none.
Appreciate it. I also did attend the Light Up the Night. That was absolutely, yet again, a wonderful event with the family in tow. The color blue this year was a bit surprising, but as I drive by it more and more, it's just growing more and more on me. I'm just not a big blue person, but it's absolutely beautiful. I do want to apologize to Councilor Davis. I was not able to make the event, and fortunately, I don't want to get you guys sick, but congratulations on your retirement from that and being able to be home with your family a bit more. Excuse me. Other than that, the only one thing I would like to say is congratulations to the Baker Prairie Band for a successful and quite wonderful band recital they had last night at the Canby, at the high school. I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sassy.
Thank you. I have 2 liaison reports. We met with Canby Heritage Landmark. We got Carol Palmer to come back, so she's on the board now, and she is revving it up. She is starting as we speak to write grants for projects. She would like to get, she figures between $10,000 and $16,000, which she said the city will match dollar for dollar unless they get volunteers. Every volunteer hour matches that, so.
Nice.
That's good for her, good for Carol. We still need 2 more people on the board. And the last thing was they are going to add City Hall to the National Register, and they are going to work on their website. It needs updating drastically. And then to my last library board. We got to meet the teen liaison, Leanna Sterno. She came to her first meeting. They are applying for several grants over the next 2 months. Several collections have been moved and/or updated for accessibility. The teen open house with the mural artist was a success. Community Reads planning has begun, so stay tuned, that will be expanded. Please consider joining the inaugural Canby Civic Engagement Academy, and as of today, it's full, so that's good. PY back next week. I think that's the page something. I don't know what PY, but I think it's the page comes back. The library will close at 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve and be closed all day on Christmas Day. And they are working to get city council goals, setting retreat with directors, what goals they would like to have included for the library. And then this year, there is no tour of Christmas homes due to lack of interest, which is kind of sad. So, Jason, there you go.
Jason, you didn't decorate your
Next
house
year.
enough.
And then thank you guys for a year. It went quick. Congratulations to the new counselors, and Paul will do a good job. Congratulations to the new Mayor Hodson, again. Thanks for all my friends and supporters for the year. It meant a lot, and I'm not going anywhere. So good luck in 2025. And Emily, congratulations. Welcome aboard.
All right.
Thank you, Counselor Sassy.
City Administrator Business and Staff Reports. Eileen?
Thank you. I turn my microphone on. I have just a few reports. We have submitted so the League of Oregon Cities is doing a survey of water and wastewater needs as part of its Water Caucus survey. So we submitted, or Canby Utilities submitted its its water project, and the city wrote a letter of support on that. So just wanted you to know that. As mentioned, the Canby Civic Engagement Academy is full. Wanted to just touch on that a little bit. So the City of Canby recently closed the registrations for the inaugural Civic Engagement Academy. The first the cohort is full, and the first meeting will begin on Thursday, January 9th. The academy will meet the second Thursday of the month and runs from January through June. Participants can expect the evening to begin at 5:30 with a city-provided dinner and an opportunity for participants to network, followed by the official program that would run from 6 to 8 p.m. The Civic Engagement Academy will offer Canby residents a valuable opportunity to gain insights into the daily operations of the City of Canby, engage with fellow community members, and explore avenues for participation in city boards and committees. The location of the academy will rotate amongst different city buildings based on who's going to present that night. As you know, that this Civic Engagement Academy was a priority for the council for this year. And so I'm very pleased on how it's come together. Just want to compliment Jamie and Kevin for taking this on and making it happen. And it is, as I said, we have a full participant and we're ready to go starting January 9th. So I'm very happy about that. So. We also met this week, the mayor and I met with Representative Drazan, talked about kind of the upcoming legislative session and mentioned different things that we had going on here in this community. Of course, we talked about I-205 tolling and its impact on Canby and Highway 99E. We talked about, and she had no questions on that. She's thoroughly briefed on the tolling issue. We talked again about the water source and treatment plant. And then we talked about several wastewater projects that we have coming up, some of which are operational, some of which are capital. So she said to make sure that we identify those that are capital, because there won't be any grant funding or anything available for operations. So we will kind of put that into two different, rather than a project, we will put them into, or think about them in terms of operations and capital. We talked about the Walnut Street Extension project. She mentioned that we talked about support on various grant requests, and again, make sure that they're capital related. She said this session, the legislature will focus on safety projects and public safety projects, so be thinking about that. We talked about the street maintenance task force and its recommendations, and she had a request that something be done for disabled veterans. So as we think about our discounts, if you will, that we already give, that if we could think about some kind of a discount for disabled veterans. So I thought that was worthwhile. She asked about PERS and will the city have any service impacts due to PERS rate increases. We don't know that yet, of course. That will be here as we turn the new year and we begin to forecast our revenues for the next budget. We'll know more about that. And then we asked, how can we help her? And she said just communication about anything going on anywhere, any place, anything that you think she should know about, to please let her know about that. So it was a very good meeting.
I have a question.
Was very
on that.
happy. Yes.
I know that Christine will eventually be part of the legislature. She's not right now yet. My understanding is correct.
She's not sworn in.
So
She's
does she
already-
have it, so to contact her, do we use the email on her campaign site, or we use, will she be eventually, we have to wait until she gets an official email, or did she talk about that particular aspect of it?
She didn't talk about it for herself. It sounded like that was already set up for her. But her assistant, Audrey, talked about she was not set up on the state, with her state email yet.
So do we pretty much have to wait until that happens before we can contact her? I mean, without have a contact for her, or a way to contact her?
I'm happy to, yeah, I'm happy to figure out what that email is and get it out to the council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I like to make our legislatures work.
Anything else, Eileen?
Just that Maya and Emily and I met with Counselor-elect Waterman today to begin the orientation process for him. So that's all I have.
Okay. Yes, I met with him on Saturday morning, so
Great.
I think it's going to be a good couple of years. Anything else? That's it?
That's it.
Action review. Oh, wait, second, I have a chance for citizen input. Anyone? Never? Okay. Is there anyone online?
Not online.
All right, then action review, please.
You approve the consent agenda as well as ordinance 1638 to a second reading on January 8th, 2025, and you adopted ordinance 1637.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I do want to remind my colleagues, if you haven't already, I think everybody has, but just in case someone has not yet talked with Ashley about the pre-goal setting meeting, then make sure you get your appointment made and talk with her about that. And Counselor Sassy, it's been a pleasure. Congratulations, gentlemen. I look forward to continuing our work together and welcoming Councilman Waterman. Canby, have a very Merry Christmas and a sane and safe holiday season. And I won't go into all of the details because we've already done it, but get an Uber. It was good advice. And we'll see you in the new year. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I think Daniel beat you to it. It was moved and seconded to adjourn. It's a non-debatable motion. Good night, Canby.